Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, presents the Friends in Recovery Saturday Shares, as they share their stories about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery.
Hey guys, my name is Jesse. I'm an alcoholic and drug addict in recovery. Really an honor to speak anywhere tonight. And thank you, Ed, for setting this up. I'm already getting the vibe, the feel of the room, and just all the different things you announced about activities and this group and that group, and that stuff fires me up. That's why I'm standing. I'm sorry if I'm giving anyone vertigo. I didn't want to just sit down. I'm honestly kind of sick of sitting down at these virtual meetings because I crave this human interaction and attention. So thank you, Ed, for doing this. So why Massachusetts? Why, outside of Worcester? How the hell did I end up on here? A couple of years ago at the treatment center I work at. I'm just going to briefly touch on work, but work is not my recovery. You'll see why in a second. This guy's name came up, and he was actually my old therapist from way long ago. This guy Mike, and we reconnected, and it turns out, small world, Mike did a podcast with Ed, and that was the podcast that he mentioned, and I went up there, and Ed, I reached out to Mike, and I think I'm going to go back up there in a couple weeks just to sit down and smoke a cigar. I didn't smoke cigars. I kind of wish I did, because they both had cigars, and I smelled like a cigar in that podcast. But now I smoke them, and I want to go back up there. And Mike's now, I consider, a dear friend. He was my therapist as a teenager. He's a power example to me in recovery. Ed is as well. Ed's always available and around, and I enjoy our friendship that we've built over the last 2, 3, 4 years. But I'm an alcoholic and drug addict. First off, my job is not my recovery. When I punch in, I put on my work hat, and I'm a good little recovery center soldier. But when I punch out, I take off my work hat and I go put on my AA hat, and I go out and work my program. And I keep those very different, because I've seen, unfortunately, how we can sort of blend the boundaries. And yes, some stuff does, if I get a text from someone and, hey, so-and-so needs treatment, needs help, I'm not going to say no, obviously. But I can't give what I don't have, and I can't give from an empty cup. So I go in and I work mine, and I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor, and I sponsor men who sponsor men who sponsor men. I should tell you this: August 11th, 2009 was a pretty important date for me. You guys can probably all figure out what happened that date just by what we're doing right now. And I'd love to say that I came in willing and able and fired up and motivated. I was none of those things. I was drunk, and I was arrested. And my higher power sent a couple guys. I saw that thumbs up, John, and thank you. Recovery meetings are the only place where you can say arrested and someone gives you the thumbs up, right? Because you know, right? And I like to say that my higher power sent a couple guardian angels. They were those people with badges that Ed mentioned. I didn't realize that at the time, but they took me out of a situation that was just suicide on the installment plan. And through a series of events, I actually ended up at this treatment center that I work at currently. It was a different iteration. It was a different thing back then, but this campus that I'm zooming from you tonight from a sleepy little town called Westboro, Massachusetts, has a special place in my heart, because This is where I got sober. This is where I lived. This is where I did the steps. This is where I had a spiritual experience for the very first time. But let me back all the way up and let me make sure I have enough time to do that. From the minute that I drank for the first time, two things happened. One, I felt like I finally fit in and I found the secret to life. And two, I did it in secret, but I did it in plain sight. And what I mean by that is it was a family party. I was 12 years old. It was for Christmas. And I have this authority problem too. I don't know if anyone else doesn't like being told what to do, but my whole family drinks. You shake our family tree, there's a bunch of drug addicts that fall out of it. And there's a bunch of booze all around at my aunt's house. And I pour out the soda and I pour in the booze. And I want to walk around my family because they think I'm drinking soda, because I have this authority problem and I don't like being told no, and I can't do it because I see everyone else doing it. And I want to kind of like throw it in their face. And all that happened was I got sick and I threw up, and I couldn't wait to do it again. And then the booze turned to weed, and the weed turned to Coke, and the Coke turned to pills. And I like to say that I was a garbage disposal for whatever got me out of it. Because from a very young age, I had no self-esteem, no self-worth. I learned in recovery that if you live for people's acceptance, you'll die from their rejection. And I learned that I was living for others' acceptance. And I was that chameleon that we talk about in recovery meetings, that if you like this kind of music, I like that kind of music. If you were into rock climbing, I was into rock climbing. If you wanted to go on a 25-mile fucking hike today, I'd go on a 25-mile hike because I want you to be my friend. I'll hike with you today, but not because I want to be your friend. I mean, that's cool too, but like self-esteem, self-worth, purpose, all that stuff is a gift to recovery for me. And all that stuff has come back. I live a great freaking life today. I keep it really basic. Told you about sponsorship steps, stay in the big book. I'm writing my fourth step in 12 years right now. Full disclosure, I don't do this perfect either. I was talking with Sponsee last week about it at Starbucks, and I was saying, I'm kind of slacking. I'm a standstill in my writing. I'm on my fears, and he just put it perfect. He was like, it's really hard to write when you're not dying. And I thought that's right on point, because when I was standing on this campus, I paroled here. I was on probation for the sixth time. I had a bunch of legal stuff as a result of my diseases, and I have multiple diseases because I can get addicted to whatever makes me feel good. I burned all my family's bridges. I was telling someone just today, I got parents who love me, who did the best they could for me, and one sibling, one brother, and 2 years younger than me. And for 7 years, we didn't see each other. And we lived just a plane ride away. But, you mix up self-esteem, self-worth, selfishness, self-centeredness, and a whole bunch of other selves. And as much as I want to see my family, I want to do drugs and drink more. And I feel like a piece of shit when I'm around them anyway. So I just want to ignore them until hey, send money. Hey, can you bail me out? Hey, this crisis, that crisis. Today, it's not like that. I was actually really grateful. Ed came up like he mentioned, and he gave me 2 of those Friends in Recovery points. And I couldn't wait to come up here tonight to tell you guys. My younger brother that I mentioned is now sober himself. I don't know. This shit rubbed off on him. I was always saving him a seat. Can't sponsor him, powerless over him. But we do this really cool growth phone call. We call it 6:30 in the morning every morning since December 23rd of 2020 is his sober date. And he does his own thing. He doesn't do the AA route. He likes to explore nature. And I talked to him this morning. He was out freaking photographing birds in Florida on the beach or whatever. But that's his thing. He's in Port St. Lucie, and he was up here recently, and I gave him that other coin because he came up. It just so happened he came up to give me my coin, my 12-year coin, last month at my home group. And Ed had given me those 2 coins, and I thought it fitting that I give him a coin as well. So really grateful we get to walk this journey together. We definitely drank and got high enough together. Every time I did drink and get high, it filled a temporary void. It did something for me, but I I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. I really enjoy, and he had someone on there today that was expert in addiction, and she was talking about how when you do a addiction or a behavior or a substance or whatever, you're messing with your dopamine, and every time you put something in you or you engage in a behavior, your brain shuts off the dopamine. So it's like this balance. And actually, the longer that you drink, drug, or act out, she was saying it's like these little gremlins on the balance beam, and it's all on the negative side. So when your brain does turn back on and kick up some more dopamine, it can never overcome it can never get balanced again. It's always, so you're always at a dopamine deficiency. And that, my friends, is why we relapse. And we've all seen it. Some of us have experienced it. Why the hell can't I stop? Whatever. And for me, it's a very practical solution. It was to be locked up and removed from that situation. I spent 16 months in jail. Department of Massachusetts, whatever the hell jail, was nice enough to put me up for 16 months. I didn't think of it at the time, but there was someone who came in and brought a message. This guy named Steve. I never seen him again. I actually forgot for a long time that he went there, but he brought in a 12 and 12. And I only remembered it when I got to treatment, and some of the stuff sounded familiar because this was also my first time exposed to any of this too, when I was 23 years old. People have been telling me since a teenager, I had a problem, I needed to stop. My 3 favorite words were, I got this. I know my life is burning in front of me. I know I can't be trusted to tell you what, color shirt I'm wearing, or, even my name. I was criminally charged by the police for giving a fake name, and twice actually. And today, I if I get pulled over, I got pulled over a couple times in recovery, and speeding, of course, because again, human. And hey, yeah, this is me, and I don't have to worry about any really big stuff today, because recovery has given me accountability, has given me that sense of purpose again. I went from someone who had nothing. Literally, I was if you looked up in the dictionary, I get emotional when I say this stuff. Somebody who addiction took from or prevented from before even life happened. That was me. You name it, family drama, DSS got involved, went to live in a foster home. That's actually how I ended up with Mike. And all this crap, and I was constantly settling for less. People told me I had potential, and I just never saw it come to fruition. So that's my experience. Here's my strength. I went to treatment. I took suggestions. I listened to the people who looked like they were reasonably happy, and I did what they did, and I got the same result. And that spiritual experience that happened right over there, about 50 yards down the hill, wasn't a magical thing. Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, they didn't all come down and say, hey, here's the secret to life. I didn't even know I was having a spiritual experience. All I know is, for the first time in my life, when I was sitting on that picnic table, I wasn't worried about what I needed to take by force or wrest satisfaction from people, or what people were going to take from me. I was at peace. I was calm. This thing was turned off, and I was peaceful. And I remember my sponsor coming up that week, because at this point, we're doing the steps in the big book, and he's coming up weekly to read with me, and we're about as far apart as you can get. He's like he came in a 3-piece suit because he was a dean at a college. I'm in a treatment center with my life burning before my eyes, on probation and parole, and not wanting to be there, and not knowing where the hell Westboro is on a map. I told him what happened, and he said, congratulations, you had a spiritual experience. And then he said something really controversial, but it saved my freaking life. He said, go work with others. So what do you mean, Jeremy? His name was Jeremy. And I remember joking with him. I was still in this big 60-something person treatment center. I go, what do you want me to walk down the hall and knock on the door and ask someone if they want to read the big book? He's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do. And that's what I did. And I sponsored my first guy as a client to another client, this guy, Billy. I never seen him again. But it got me in the habit of opening the book and reading with men and taking men through the 12 steps. And, that saved my bacon more times than not, because recovery is great and recovery gives me great gifts in life. But real life happens. I had to sponsor relapse in recovery and not make it back here. And in the throes of his addiction, decide that his life wasn't worth living anymore and take his own life and show up to that funeral and look his kids dead in the eye and his kid telling me, don't do to your kids what dad did to us. There's no way to prepare for that stuff. There's no promise in any of the recovery literature of how, if X happens, do Y, how to navigate that, right? But I already knew how to navigate it, because you people have taught me that with your experiences and showing up to these meetings. And it was all of his family, and the only two people from AA there were me, his sponsee, and his sponsor, and we went there together. And I think of Bob often, and Bob's like my there's one and 1A, my higher powers, and I talk to him often. But that's that's some of the shit we go through in recovery, right? Here's the hope. Here's the good stuff. I went from being this person who just, life burning down in front of me. No one wants to talk to me. Just a real mess of a human being. No self-worth, no self-esteem. Couldn't figure out if I was suicidal or homicidal or which one to do first. And little by slow, there's a church involved too that really helped me out and continues to help me out. That sort of blended 12 steps with some Christian teachings. And I heard someone say the Recovery Bible, and that thing changed my life too. Because I grew up forced Catholic, and you didn't have a choice. You just went to this school and did this church. You were an altar boy here, and I didn't learn shit. And it took me to come here to be an alcoholic and a drug addict, and someone to put a life recovery Bible in my hand. And my parents could have saved like 20 grand by sending me to that school. Just say, hey, grow up, be an addict, and then someone's going to give you this life recovery Bible one day, and it's all going to make sense. And not that it all makes sense, but a lot of it does, because those same people that came up and gave me those suggestions to do what they did, I've done it, and I'm happy to report for any people new here or still on the fence, this shit works. Little by slow, right? Building back my life, getting those things in life where, alcohol and drugs I never had a car. I never had a legal car in my name. I was charged twice criminally with stealing other people's cars that didn't belong to me, but I never had a legal car in my name until I got sober, and I fixed the stuff with the RMV, and I'm still paying back an amend to this lawyer for the privilege to drive. And what happened? Someone in AA actually gave me a loan to get my license. No one would give me a loan. Another person in AA actually trusted me enough to give me their car note and say, hey, pay me back in installments. And I paid them back for my first car in recovery, right? And all the outside stuff happens, a place to live, a job, a better job. I realized that, in that treatment center, I couldn't remember how old I was. My brain was fried. And through some clarity, I realized that I didn't burn all my brain cells. And I decided to go to college. I never thought I was going to go to college. I stepped foot in Quinsigamond Community College in 2013, and I got an associate's degree. Then I got a bachelor's degree in 2018. Now I'm in my second year of a master's program, and I have, dreams to go even further. And now that dean of a college that came in with the 3-piece suit, now, I'm going to be a professor one day. I'm going to teach this shit to other people. And I have 3-piece suits in my closet, in my house that I own, in my home that I drive to with my car, and my wife of 7 years, 7 years, 2014, it's 2007 years. I always screw that one up. I used to think that was just a thing in like TV before I got married, and now I realize it's not. For some reason, it's just a mental blank spot in here, right next to the one that says drugs and alcohol might be okay if ... And that bullshit lie I always combat with. Actually, they're not. Right. I live right down the street in Massachusetts. I don't know, in Jersey, probably the same. Weeds like more common than cigarettes, and there's a weed store next to a liquor store next to a KFC right down the street from my house. And the first time I drove by it, I was like, perfect, one-stop shopping. I'm like 10 years sober, and these are the thoughts that go through my head, right? Thank God we don't get in trouble for our thoughts. We get in trouble for our actions, and I don't act on it. I've never been in the parking lot of any of all three of those businesses, right? I'd rather go home and spend time with my kids. I got a 5-year-old, I got a 3-year-old on Tuesday, and my wife's 3 months pregnant. And I just have a freaking blast with them. And the way that, you know, they just look through life, and they just, you know, Ed, tell me to shut up anytime because I'm looking at the clock. Thank you. They, you know, they just teach me so much because they're so innocent, they're so pure. And yeah, they might hear mommy and daddy say fuck once in a while and parrot it, and it's cute for a second, but like, I know, John, sorry, human again. But you know, unadulterated, just the way a kid looks at the world is like the most beautiful thing to me. And I forget, you know, stress and resentments and fears and dishonesty, and just all that stuff melts away. And I just want to be present with them in the moment. They teach me how to be in the moment. They don't give a shit about anything else going on except what they're doing in that moment. And that's what I learned my first day in recovery, one day at a time. And it sounded like a pipe dream. And every once in a while, I still do pinch myself and be like, hey, is this my real life? Because, you know, we've buried plenty of people on the way. And every time, it just happened last week, a good friend of mine's brother decided to pick back up one more time. And, you know, his celebration of life was, you know, the following week. And I say, but for the grace of God, go I. Because if what's that saying? Thank God life isn't fair, because if it was, I would be dead or in jail. And it's true. Life's not fair. I gotta suit up and show up. I gotta show up, put on the big boy pants, and adult. And you know what? Sometimes adulting sucks. I'll end with this, Ed. So we bought a house. Doesn't even seem normal to even say, and it's been over a year. But we bought a house, right? And they actually, it's all in my name. It's all in mine. It's crazy because my wife's a stay-at-home mom. She's way more than that. But, you know, on paper, they were like, oh, who works and whatever. So some bank said, hey, you can buy a house today. And we did it, and we inherited this problem that we had to go to the city for and petition the zoning board. And it's been a pain in the ass. We can't use our own driveway in our house for like a year and a half, and we have to share one. And that's a quality problem today. Anytime I get wrapped up around that, because of course, being a defiant drug addict and alcoholic, even in recovery, I use the fucking driveway anyway. They put a curb on one side. I drove over my grass. I killed my grass on one side to drive on the other side, right? And then someone from City Hall comes by and was like, hey, I'll make you put up another curb. Stop doing that. And I talked to my sponsor, and I realized that I need to do this thing the right way. Gold-plated problems. Exactly, Patrice. Thank you. But where I'm going with that is, this person went from person non grata in my life and someone I really had a resentment against, that worked for the city and made me jump through all these hoops. And through the sick man's prayer and through writing inventory out on him. And I really didn't like this. Just, I don't want to say the words that I said about him, but you guys get it. I realized he was my neighbor. I was going on for a walk one day, and he was mowing his lawn, and we just had this beautiful conversation about nothing to do with nothing. And I realized he was just another human being. Chuck Chamberlain, and then a new pair of glasses says we're all God's kids. And he's one of God's kids. Roland is one of God's kids. And you know, it blew my wife's mind, because this guy's been nothing but a jerk to both of us. And we're at City Hall, we're at this big freaking whatever meeting, and he actually stood up and said good stuff about both of us. And my wife, Laura, looked at me like, is that the same guy that's been such an asshole to us? And you know what? He might have done that anyway, but at least in that moment, I had the perspective change because of all the tools you guys gave me in recovery. And that's just one small example of a million of them that this goes way deeper than drugs and alcohol. This is a life problem that I self-medicated with drugs and alcohol. And now I self-medicate with the spiritual solution. Get way better results too. So I could go on and on. I love you all. I don't know you except for Ed, but I still love you because we're all in this thing together. And I'm just really glad I had the privilege to share tonight. Thank you guys. And I will say the magic word, I pass.
That concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery Saturday Shares.